when I would go to these independent, fundamental, Bible-believing, Bible-banging, foot-stomping, soul-winning, door-knocking Baptist churches, they wouldn't shout. They wouldn't clap for you. That's giving glory to men. But they would laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening. And all I care about, are they listening? Because you can have the greatest content in the world, and if everybody is asleep, what good are you?
I'm curious, what were some of your earliest experiences with music that got you so interested in it as a career?
Well, my mom, she goes back to nearly, whose mother doesn't have such a big impact, but my mother played the piano in church, and she loved to scan the audience. You know, she didn't have to read the music. She could scan that audience and sing that alto like, oh, victory. And she'd be playing that piano, and I'd be up in the back row of the balcony learning stand-up comedy for all my friends. And she'd be loving God, having a great time, until she spotted me in the balcony. And above the singing, I'd hear her clear that throat. And I knew it was a battle cry. But my mother loved to play. She loved to sing. She taught me to sing. I sang my first time in church when I was 4. And I had my first recording contract when I was 11. But that's another life and another story.
So what got you into performing and singing professionally?
Well, my mother knew I was hyper, as you couldn't tell. And I was diagnosed with the ADHD before they knew how to abbreviate it. But she read in the paper that they were looking for boys to come audition for parts at for the local Houston plays, right? Well, she knew I wasn't athletic, because I went out for Pee Wee and they made me the water boy, and I didn't like that. But I would sing in church and entertain the old folks, and I loved doing that. So she thought, well, maybe this, took me down to the Houston Music Theater. I auditioned imitating Louis Armstrong singing Hello, Dolly, and got every part that came through. The first one was Music Man. Tommy Tune is also from Houston. He choreographed it. So he tells me, but they wouldn't let me dance, Kirk. We were Baptists. So I could sing, and they wanted me bad enough that they would let me stand there and not dance. Everybody danced around me, and I sang, right? And get this, Tommy Tune tells my mom, if you'll let me teach him to dance, I'll take him to New York, to Broadway. Well, my mom didn't want me to go to New York. She just wanted me not to be so hyper. And she started praying immediately, my mother did, started praying that the Lord would open up the world of gospel music to me, that God would get me out of the theater and into gospel music. Well, within weeks, I was singing at the International Song Festival through a whole nother set of circumstances, got a recording contract the next day with the Benson Company.
Wow.
I was 11 at this time. I was out of the theater into gospel music. And then when I was 14, I finally met who I'd been singing about. I went to church camp and met Jesus, June 5th, 1973. Of course, that changed everything, because then I started running the lyrics through my mind, and I believed every bit of it. A lot of my theology from my youth comes from the old hymns I sang in church.
That's one of the things I miss most about music in churches today, is that the hymns are so rich in theology. And that's really where I cut my teeth too. As a young man coming to faith in Jesus, it was theology. It was understanding who God is, why he put us here, and understanding a bit of history that really anchored me in my faith.
Oh, yes.
And I just love those hymns. And I love that you love the hymns.
It'll be those songs that'll get you through your MRI.
That's
it
right.
wasn't some new ditty I learned on Sunday morning. Oh, well, let's repeat 100 times. What got me through is blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. When they were doing my MRI on my brain to see if I had one, no, literally they were looking for MS. This was 12 years ago. And I was scared. And I heard that thing clicking as it went around my brain, looking for signs of life. And I started singing to myself, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine.
That's right. You know who else does that is my friend Johnny Erickson Tada. I'm sure that you know Johnny, and she's just singing in that wheelchair all the time, and it's always the hymns. It's always the hymns.
Yeah.
There's a reason they've been around so long, that they're so enduring. Now, you also got your start in youth ministry. What is it about youth ministry that blends so well with your love for music?
Well, I love young people and I love old people and everything in between you can have. Young people are a clean slate. Old people, we're cleaning our slate. And everybody in between is building their lives, growing their careers, doing life. The beginning is when you got to catch them, and you can catch them at the end. They're listening. And I love that the first part of my ministry was from 1980 to 1988. When I was a young man, I did youth camps, youth meetings. I knew the lingo. And then about 1988, Bill Gaither comes along, picks me up, and drops me into a sea of geriatrics. And I love them too. And now I'm one of them. But I always loved those two groups. And I think what we're missing out sometimes in church, what I'm hearing a lot from those that follow me on Facebook and YouTube, I go live nearly every day and we sing these old hymns. I sit and play them, we sing them, I put up the words, everybody can sing along at home because they're not singing them in church. And what the local churches need to remember is old people have money. We tithe. And you ought to sing Amazing Grace every now and then. Wouldn't kill you. And you might learn something. The kids need to know Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Oh my goodness. How can you not love that?
I agree with everything that you're saying. And what we love about you, Mark, is you also incorporate comedy and storytelling, humor, and these great stories into your songs. It almost seems like...
Well, I didn't mean to.
No, how did that happen? It just sort of crept in?
Well, I thought the Lord called me to sing, right? In 1977, I was on a trajectory towards a business degree, and the Lord asked me, and the best he can to a Baptist, he never talks to us audibly because he knows we can't handle it. But it was louder than audible. It was in my spirit, and he asked me, why won't I do what he wants me to do? And he told me what that was, going to music. He never said a thing about comedy, or I would have found myself in the belly of a whale. I'm telling you, he didn't let me in on that little nugget. But when I would go to these independent, fundamental, Bible-believing, Bible-banging, foot-stomping, soul-winning, door-knocking Baptist churches, they wouldn't shout. They wouldn't clap for you. That's giving glory to men. But they would laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening. And all I care about, are they listening? Because you can have the greatest content in the world, and if everybody is asleep, what good are you?
That's right.
Jesus held their attention. He told stories about women who lost their coins and this and that and the other. And people love to hear about people, That's why there's People magazine. People love to hear and read and think. And so if you can find a story that tells your point and makes your point and is funny along the way, that way they're listening. And before you know it, you lay them in the lap of Jesus and they never saw it coming. That's my favorite kind of story.
Mine too. Mark, talk to us a little bit more about music. Sometimes we go to church and we might leave church feeling like we just saw a singer performing more than we actually entered into worship with God. Almost like, did that worship leader think that they were just auditioning on The Voice, or were they trying to lead me to the throne room of God?
Well, I don't want to judge their motives. And I'm so glad I came to Jesus when I was a child, because I have really honed my skeptical skills. I can sit out there and if I'm not careful, start judging. Well, listen, what I tell all old people my age now, open your ears, stand up. I know they stand up too long now. We used to sit and open the hymnal and it was fine. We worshiped God wide open and never had to stand. Well, now they're standing. So stand up. Instead of getting ticked off when you see lyrics up there that don't even rhyme well, look at the young people. Turn your head toward the young people. They're getting it. And it will bless you watching them be blessed. Don't be so selfish on Sunday. I do it all the time. I look, I could have written that in my sleep. And then I turn and look at the people, the young people, they're getting it. And then all of a sudden I get it. And then I'm joining them in this worship experience, But you can't sit there and judge everything.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
When I think of the scriptures and the distinctions that we find there with regard to music, like in Ephesians chapter 5, Paul tells us to sing hymns and psalms and spiritual songs, making music in our hearts to one another.
I don't know. Paul said it, so it must be important. Psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Now, I never personally in our Baptist church, I don't remember singing a psalm. We did hymns, which is something Fanny Crosby, I think, that era. That's what I think of as a hymn. And spiritual songs, I guess, would be the new ones, something new, because the Lord did say, sing to me a new song. So he's all about the new, too.
Yeah.
So, but don't forget the hymns. This is the first generation that has left the hymns behind. I mean, Isaac Watts, when he came home from church, I may not have this story right, so y'all check me out, get my facts straight. But listen, he comes home from church, tells his dad, I'm bored with the Psalms. His dad, being wise, said, well, go write some new songs. He does. Isaac Watts goes in there and writes a few new songs. And they were contemporary Christian songs at the time. But as time grew, the church adopted those. And then Fanny Crosby came along. Let's just say she's next. And we didn't ditch Isaac Newton and Watts or whoever it was. We brought them together, right? Fanny, we brought them along. And then Gaither comes along. And we're singing all these new Gaither songs in the 70s. I'll never forget it. They were taking over the church. But they brought Fanny too. They brought Isaac too. And now this new services, they're not really bringing them with them anymore. It's like they're not bringing Fanny with. We need Fanny too. We need Fanny, and we need Isaac, and we need all those that have taught us our faith.
Hey, thanks for watching my interview with singer-songwriter Mark Lowry. Don't want to miss future conversations? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel.